And that's in a nutshell where I am. A doctor who should have known better, but actually had to learn the lessons the hard way.
Welcome, Organic Matrix members. Today is super exciting. We're going to be speaking to Dr. Stephan Neff. This episode is dedicated to those who've suffered at the hands of addiction. Addiction has run rampant in the United States. In fact, 108,000 people have overdosed just last year in 2021. Many people feel trapped and feel unsure on how to begin healing from their addictions. Addiction is more than substance abuse. It involves our impulses and what we like to do, what we like to chase, the pleasure, instead of growth and development. On today's episode, we welcome Dr. Stephan Neff. Dr. Neff has firsthand experience with overcoming addiction. He is also a best selling author, and he wrote a book called My Steps to Sobriety. Dr. Neff shares his experience and knowledge to help support those who want to overcome their addictions. He is also building a community with his podcast and YouTube channel, Steps to Sobriety. Today, we go over addiction, trauma, and the effects of malnutrition. Our goal is to equip you with tools you need to take your life back. Good evening, Dr. Neff, and welcome to the Organic Matrix.
Sorry. Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute honor to be on your show because you're linking so many of these beautiful things. When I say beautiful, I mean what's beautiful about anxiety, trauma, and all these things? Well, it is actually, but we'll come to that. But you're linking all those things together and therefore starting to make sense out of the suffering that so many of us go through. So yes, I'm honored to be on your show.
Thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where are you
Oh, well,
from?
many moons ago, born in Germany, and I was born in the 60s there. So when I was young, I was in my teenager years, that was the 70s, 80s in Germany. Germany is a beautiful country with a beautiful alcohol culture. So alcohol was everywhere. It's not like maybe in the UK or in other places where there are certain times that alcohol is being dispensed. So everyone rushes into the clubs, get blind drunk, and then because 11 o'clock there's no more alcohol. For us, alcohol was around the clock. And that's actually quite a nice thing if you think about a culture that uses alcohol sensibly. Regrettably, so many of us don't. So that's fact one. Um, my problem was also that whilst I come from a poorer background, alcohol was there, but it wasn't really tempting to me, in all fairness. Having said that, then one day trauma hit me quite big with a gang assault, and I ended pretty beaten up and with a hefty dose of PTSD that I didn't know about. At that time, PTSD was not a thing that you talk about. So therefore, I ended up uh, being in quite a dark place and immediately started to transform myself into Rambo. Really, the next 5 years was pure martial arts, was working during the day in the sense of being at school and then training 4 hours or so. And with not a care about my emotions, what drove me, etc. So I lived for 5 years under this tension. And then I went to university. And guess what? I found alcohol and I found girls. And it was beautiful because now this was the first time that I could actually feel the relaxation, I was no longer Rambo. I could switch off. And that switching off was such a powerful experience. I never forgot that. And so therefore, from then on, whenever times got rough, I liked my alcohol. And, initially this was social. Um, Admittedly, I was very social, I had a good time in university. But then over life, I became a doctor, I emigrated a few times, lived in different countries, married, had family, all those kind of things come with their own heaps of trauma. And I had never learned anything else than work hard. I was a workaholic, and then play hard. I was an alcoholic. Um, and yeah, unfortunately, that only lasts such a long time. Fair enough, fair call. I've made it two decades and then some. So for quarter of a century, I was basically going absolutely nuts with a boom and bust behavior, with a very schizophrenic attitude. Because I was reading self-help books and I was reading everything I could get my fingers on, typically with a glass of wine in my hand, and reading a lot about it and making very few changes. Okay, there was very few books I had not read, and yeah, sooner or later, this kind of lifestyle catches up with you.
Mm.
And yeah, I was lucky enough my wife did not leave me. I did not get into trouble with the law. I always had a high respect for law. I did not get massively sick from a bodily function, but mentally I was down and out. I was an empty shell. And that was really 88 years ago. Um, and that my spiral downwards had continued to a point that there were indeed thoughts that I would be better off not being on this world. And because the PTSD, the anxiety, the depression that I self medicated with work and alcohol, they were not going away. They were going away for a few seconds, minutes, hours when I was blind drunk. And then I was 21 again and listening to some music and having a good time. But no, I needed to come to that point to then finally say that I'm powerless over the addiction and
Mhm.
to actually get help. And I was so blessed because I my wife took out a loan and put me into a rehabilitation hospital. We didn't have the money for it, but it was the best investment I've ever done in my life. And from then on, I finally started to heal. And this is an ongoing journey because trauma comes in layers, healing comes in layers. And every day, I now know that I've got the privilege of making choices. Many addicts don't have that privilege anymore. You already referred to the 108,000 of narcotic deaths alone, opioid deaths in your country. This is not just in your country, that's all over the world. We see this the issue of opiates being tainted with fentanyl and other chemicals to a dangerous degree. We see life getting harsher for many people. Let it be because they are in a war zone or they're internally or externally displaced. They are suffering from the climate, and life becomes more and more uncertain, and
Mm.
trauma becomes more and more in our lives. COVID, for crying out loud. All that worked together to put us closer and closer to choices where we maybe choose a quick fix, the
Mhm.
glass of alcohol, the sugar, the sex, the whatever your poison is or combination of poisons are, that are the quick fix, but they don't address the underlying problems.
Mhm.
And I'm privileged now to see that. And it has become for me a vision and then a mission to go out there and actually say, hey guys, if I can get my shit together, maybe there's a chance for you. And that's in a nutshell where I am. A doctor who should have known better, but actually had to learn the lessons the hard way. And here I am, a patient and doctor at the same time, and being very glad for the insights that I've gained, the lessons that I've learned the hard way.
I really admire how humble you are and how you take responsibility in claiming who you are in totality with your past, including where you're going in the future. And I I love that because it's inspiring to, you know, we have episodes when we are in addiction. We do things that we wish we didn't remember, or maybe we do things we find out later on that we forgot. And to take your power back, it's easy to hide in shame and then use our addictions to make excuses. Oh, well, I'm not so bad. Like that justifying our behaviors. But there's so much power in claiming your past. And would you say that's one of the first things we need to do to heal?
Yes, yes. Having said that, there are different thought models and different approaches to rehab. I went through a 12-step system. And therefore, it was, in my first day in rehab, you sit around the group there, and everyone says, "Hello, I'm Joe. I'm an alcoholic. And hey, I'm Gene. I'm a sexaholic." And then suddenly there's quiet, and you think, "Oh, shit, it's my turn." And my mouth just formed the words, "Hello, I'm Stefan. I'm an alcoholic." I don't actually know much about the next hour, because the moment that word has left, that statement has left my mouth, and my ears heard my own words saying it, it became reality. And now I could deal with it. Now I was able to address things. And that was powerful. That was taking ownership for the first time. And it was the scariest thing I could have done. And yet it was actually the absolute starting point of my recovery. That moment I spoke those words. There are other people out there who disagree with that, who are far more future focused in their recovery and say, yeah, forget that you're an alcoholic. No, no, no. We are focusing now on the good life. We're focusing on putting new habits into place, teaching you how to deal with emotions, etc. So they are against stating that you're an alcoholic. They're against focusing on the past, but rather looking towards the future. Um, Personally, I had to look at my past and had to learn from it. In all fairness, that was actually a natural thing for me to do because I'm very interested in history. So I strongly believe if we don't look at the lessons of that people in the past had to learn the hard way, we forget them and we do the same mistakes, and as we see right now with the chaos in this world. So therefore, that was actually very logical for me. So the 12-step program worked like a treat for me from a logical perspective. And I very much stand behind a logical approach towards your addiction. And that's what the 12-step system is. There are other logical approaches there. So I'm not saying there's only one. No, there are multiple approaches. But for me and for many others, it's the first time that we admit to ourselves what's really happening, that we can stop hiding, that we can stop the shame and the guilt in due course, because we understand that those things that we did that we are not proud of, we did for a damn good reason,
Yeah,
because we were trying to avoid the pain that would have otherwise been there. And whatever you do in order to get your next fix, it's certainly not pretty, but the next fix is as important as the next breath, as the next water for a man in a desert,
yeah,
or food for someone who has been starving. That's the same level where the drug or the behavior is. And let that be, as I said, drugs, let it be alcohol, let it be eating disorders. It's the same thing. We're
yeah.
treating a tension, we're treating a pain that is deep down inside ourselves, and that pain eats us up. And that's why we are trying to escape our reality.
Absolutely. And though how the culture is set up now, it's medicine is so normalized that using holistic methods is like, oh, you believe in that? Like,
True. And that's bullshit too. That's we'll come to that because there is not one approach, honestly.
mhm,
And I wouldn't say 12 steps program is medicine.
mhm,
It is a logical approach from someone who figured it out in the 1930s. They've tried everything else then, and they figured out that it's just if we all can come together and actually admit that we're powerless and work together and see what works for us and what not, then we can teach each other, etc. So this was a beautiful way with the 12-step system. Not very medical there at all. Um, Having said that, medicine does need to play a role in addiction. And I say that because as addicts, we completely neglect our body.
mhm,
All addicts are malnourished. But let me be quite clear about it. I would say most people in modern society, in the Western society, are malnourished.
right.
Um, sometimes, even if you grow your own veggies and do your own things, you're still malnourished because simply you don't get the volumes of those things that you need, that your body needs to heal, especially when you have starved it for many years in addiction or due to other mental health problems or physical problems. Also, you might live in an area in the world where there are nutrition deficits in the soil. Here in New Zealand, selenium and zinc are pretty low in our soil. It's very hard to actually get that through nutrition if you don't supplement. So this is one example where malnutrition is just a given if
Mm.
you look at it. And if you then add the lifestyle many of us have been living, or maybe are living, oh my goodness. If you then go through a supermarket with open eyes, then you have to admit that really 80% of what you see in the supermarket should not be called food.
I
Food
agree.
is something that is helping you to live a full life, to make you a better person. I'm sorry, the cardboard packaging is probably more nutritious than some of the shit that you're putting in yourself. Okay, so let's be clear about that. And that's just nutrition. So that's from a holistic point of view. There's so many other aspects of it. There
Mhm.
is the rehydration. There is this constant sympathetic drive to fight and flight. We're constantly, and that is good for me as a doctor. You don't catch me out in the anesthetic when I work in my theater because my PTSD makes me hypervigilant. Hey, that's
Mhm.
cool. So that works well. But if you're constantly in that state, guess what? You're burning out.
Yeah.
So therefore, when was the last time you've switched on your parasympathetic nervous system? And that's then again the holistic thing, the meditation, the breathing exercises, the stretching exercises, maybe the yoga, all those kind of things.
Mhm.
And we haven't even touched upon spiritual. So there's so many things that we have forgotten about in our crazy modern life.
Yeah.
And it bites you in the bum. It certainly did me. And yeah, I had to learn the hard way. Oh boy, there's a lot of work to be done.
What inspired you to start studying medicine?
Initially, I wanted to be a vet. And there was this romantic, all creatures large and small, about a vet in the Yorkshire Dales in 1930s. And it was all romantic and then beautiful. And he found the love, and it was nice. And I thought, hey, I'd be a vet. And then, however, a friend of mine was in St. John's Ambulance as a volunteer, so teenage volunteer. He dragged me along, and I soon figured out that it's far more fun to help people than it is that. And it's instead of going to the army, I chose 10 years of part-time being a paramedic. So that was that. And then very soon I realized when I put my mind to it, I'm actually quite clever. So I went to university and became and studied medicine. And it was just the human body is an amazing beast. It is just lovely. And I got really hooked on everything. I became an anatomy assistant, so I know my anatomy well by having studied cadavers, etc., and taught others about it. So the more you know about it, the more you're fascinated about it. So here I was, completely in knowledge. I mean, I knew it, the human body. Did I recognize mental health? Oh, yeah, in everyone else. I could see a PTSD a mile away. I could see addiction a mile away. You opened the door into my consult room. I had you covered. I knew what your problems were. Did I see it in the mirror? No. And that was the bizarre thing. That was the kind of schizophrenia I lived for such a long time. It was bizarre. But again, it was what it was. I had to have this journey to now be the man that I'm nowadays. Without that, I would be still the same idiot, probably far more arrogant than now, and far more I know it all, far more angry, far more resentful, far more in pain, full of shame and guilt. That was the old me.
Mhm.
Ah, awful, awful, awful. No, and nowadays, no. Nowadays, I'm a doctor, but I'm also a man. I can identify as Stephan Neff. Not Stephan Neff, the doctor, but Stephan Neff, the guy, the dude, the man. Um, Warts and all, scars and all.
Mhm.
That's me.
I love that. Yes. There's so much power in, like, finding and choosing to define your name the way you want to. It's your whole legacy, and I feel like a lot of people,
Mm,
they don't they don't see that until it's a little late. So we're gonna help them out on this podcast right now and let them know, like, you if you're a mom, you're more than a mom. If you're a firefighter, you're more than a firefighter. If you're a
yeah.
big brother, you're more than a big brother. We play these roles temporarily, but we wear many faces,
Mm.
and they're all us, but the core is the being that we are, that we're born with, and that we rest in eternity with. That's what we get to mold, and I love that you took your power back and you made yourself, like, you built yourself and you love yourself, and I love that.
That's a hard journey, though. Guys, I invite you to come along. The journey is beautiful. Has so many detours, you have no idea. It's meandering through life. And guess what? There's more trauma to come because that's what life is. But the more you go down this path and often maybe find allies along the walk who maybe walk with you by your side or are behind you and support you, cheer you on that path, the more you grow. And the first few steps, I mean, your feet hurt. After the first step, everything hurts. And then after a while, you walk, and then still, oh God, the feet hurt. And after a while, you suddenly realize you're walking on that path, and you think, okay, there's actually not much pain there. And I'm starting to enjoy that.
Mhm.
So that's the same thing. It's the same journey when you go to create new habits in a gym, or maybe with eating, maybe with whatever it is that you're at the moment addressing. Um, there will be a learning curve, but that learning curve is steep. And very soon, if you just stick with it, you will find that your life changes. That's a guaranteed thing. The only thing in recovery that changes is everything. That I can attest to. And that's the same with mental health. Once you focus on your demons and focus on ways of improving yourself, wow, there's no holding you back.
Amen. How did you handle the stress when you were going through school?
School was actually easy. Well, actually not. To start off with, I was mediocre. I hadn't found the passion yet. But then we actually had a history teacher that we detested. We hated the man because he was doing a test every single session. We had a test. That test was last night in the main news. What were the headlines of the news? So he forced us to be interested in daily news. And I don't know why everyone was pissed off at that. And of course, he threw other things in there, other about the stuff that we learned about, etc. But everyone hated him. And somehow I thought, I'm going to show you. So I started learning more about history. And I came to a point where I knew more about a subject than he did. And that was addictive. That was cool. And I was sort of at that time sort of the, the I wasn't bullied, but I was certainly not in the in cloud. And suddenly, when I beat this teacher quotation mark in his own game, I was the hero in my class, and I was suddenly hanging out with the cool girls, and that was cool. Oh, I like that. And so, therefore, learning became for me a beautiful thing, and for that I'm forever grateful. And with hindsight, unfortunately, Mr. Brown will be somewhere up there now. But this man actually changed truly my life. He, what a shame that I could not go back and actually say thank you to him with hindsight. Um, so learning was actually a rescue for me. Or was it actually maybe the start of my workaholic kind of life, where I could throw myself into the books
Mm.
and therefore forget about the rest of my life? Maybe. Probably, actually, when I look at it. Um, Whatever it was beautiful. I
Mhm.
remember one night at university, it was meanwhile coming close to midnight. I was there in front of this anatomy book, and what I had was a cup of tea there, and it was just an old-fashioned light sort of cone coming down on there. It was completely dark around me. It was completely quiet in the student home, and I was just there. And there was this kind of out-of-body experience of me seeing that cone of light, the knowledge, the tea, and this focus that was beautiful. That was these were the good times. This was when life boiled down to calm and to things. And the way I tell it, I now got the realization that this was serenity, that this was actually calmness that I achieved at that moment, for which I will forever remember that moment. That was probably the first time in my life that I experienced that now that I think about it. Um, Yet nowadays, this is something that we try to achieve with all kind of ways. I saw it there. I saw the glimpse the first time, and that was linked with learning. So stress in university, yes, there was stress, no doubt, but there was also a great time, and I had a beautiful time. Okay, so there was not much stress. The stress came later in my work life because in medicine, certainly when I became a junior doctor, 80, 90-hour weeks were the norm. And it was a very strange thing. You would work 24 hours on, 24 hours off. And when I say work 24 hours, I mean it, 24, and some stuff like that. This
How
was,
can
uh,
yeah, how can you function cognitively at that state? I mean, how do you
that's
do it?
we we know it nowadays that this is virtually impossible. I mean, after 24 hours on the go, you might as well drink 2 bottles of wine because that's the same mistake rate you would do in a driving simulator, etc. 16 hours nonstop,
Yeah.
it gives you about a bottle of wine. That is the reality. That's what we know now. But then it was a culture of you work hard and you play hard. End of the story. How do you switch off? With alcohol. So that was the kind of attitude that was there in Germany as well as in the UK where I worked. When I then moved to New Zealand and Australia, it was still the same culture for me. Although out here people live different lives, there's more work-life balance, something that I had not experienced being brought up. And to a certain degree, since I was sort of a self-made man, I had laid down the foundations of you have to work hard. That makes you a man. A man is a real man. So there was a lot of macho crap in going through my head. Um, and unfortunately, that was a big hurdle for me. So I created my own hurdles, my own obstructions towards healing and towards recovery, really, towards mental health, towards a good work-life balance. Um, Many hard lessons I had to learn in due course before that changed. And probably it still hasn't changed. I'm still guilty as charged. I work too hard. I still throw myself at projects with a passion that is unparalleled. And yeah, I think I've got still that trait in me. It will
That's
be there until I die.
you
So
that's a beautiful trait to have because our longevity is contingent on our sense of passion that we can have.
exactly. So from that point, yes, but also you need to develop the same passion for looking after yourself as you do for writing another book. If you're in academia, writing another paper, there are only so many midnight oil candles that you can burn. Okay. You need to look after your sleep. You need to look after your nutrition. You need to look after your soul, after your relationships. There's so much more to you than being the doctor, the soldier, the whatever role you have got, especially if they are very intense roles. We often live them to the fullest, and then the rest just falls to the wayside. If you read any history book about or any memoir of any soldier, there is never the and then we stayed together with my wife for 50 years. I'm sorry, there's always a a very dark night of the soul because relationships break up, women walk away from such a crazy lifestyle.
Mm,
Well, that makes you think a little bit, and it's the same other way around. It's very hard to keep a relationship going if you only focus on your work.
yeah.
No, it doesn't work. But yet I lived that. So I don't know how the hell I got away with it. Maybe I know how I got away with it because I chose a wife who was just as driven as I was. So therefore, we both made the same mistake. But somehow, despite all the pain that we caused each other and that we would live through together, we stayed together. And that's, I guess, a difference compared with many others who would much easier walk away from pain and just hoping that the grass is greener on the other side.
Mhm.
And it never is in reality. And I had to
Yeah.
learn. Oh, I learned that much, much earlier in my life. So there are many roles, and sometimes we get just so caught up in the fog of war, in the fog of daily life, that we forget to step back, stop that rat race, and actually do think what we really need to do to become better human beings.
Mm. Are you familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of
Oh,
needs?
hell yes. Oh, hell yes. I just did a video on that yesterday, actually.
Yeah, I would love to see it.
I know, and it is so beautiful because I might as well tell the story here. It
Yeah.
is I was anesthetizing a gentleman last week, and we did shoulder surgery. So I had numbed his shoulder. He was completely pain-free there. Sent him off to sleep. Uneventful surgery, uneventful anesthetic. Put him into recovery for him to come around. And soon the nurse says, "Look, can I have some different painkillers? They don't seem to work." I said, "Okay," wrote something else up. And then she came back and said, "Look, would you mind reviewing this patient?" And I said, "Okay, yeah, what's going on?" And I walked into recovery, and he was still in this twilight zone between awake and asleep. And here he was, throwing himself around. And we were thinking, wow, is that pain? And she said, no, I've given him heaps. And he said, I'm in pain. And then immediately he said, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And I think, oh, what's going on here? So I listened to his chest, beautiful entry, both sides, absolutely fine. Water, water, water. And he was going through all the basic needs a human has because his body was screaming, there's something not right, there's something not right. And he was going through all of them, cycling through, and he had been given heaps of water. He can breathe normally. There was no pain. As it turned out, I mean, I had seen things like that over my career before. I said, look, give me an ultrasound. And we have a quick look at his bladder. And his bladder was huge. The guy needed to pee. But he had not got the things were not together up in his head to actually make that connection yet. It's just the only thing his body realized is, I'm in trouble. I'm in trouble. And it was the basic things that he cycled through. I can't breathe. I need water. I'm in pain. Those kind of things. And it was so beautiful. And what we did, we put a catheter in him, drained his bladder, and suddenly everything calmed down. And 5 minutes later, his brain had reconnected all together and he said, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so pleased. And it was bizarre. But it was this kind of his brain circling through this basic human needs, thinking, what the
Mhm,
hell is it? And
mhm.
we in our lives, we are often the same. We are striving towards the top of the pyramid, this pinnacle of meeting someone who is sitting in a lotus position on the top of a mountain and giving us the most beautiful insights. When in reality, we have not looked after ourselves. We
Mhm.
have not emptied our bladder. We haven't drunken anything. We are running around dry like a crisp. Meanwhile, your body is saying, help, help. And you think, where's this anxiety coming from?
Mhm.
Shut up. I'm going for the wisdom. You know, you haven't eaten breakfast. You haven't drunk anything. Exactly. Have you looked after yourself? No.
Yes, yes. That is this is such an important lesson because the geniuses that we all admire, they're at the level of self-actualization, but the price of self-actualization is more than strife and it's more than working. It's about no managing the needs below self-actualization to build the foundation necessary to peak and maintain that peak of focus, maintain that peak of harmony. So I love that you and I see eye to eye when it comes to these things because it's all about respecting the machine. If you want optimal results, you need to have optimal self-respect for the body and the machine.
Mm. So true. So true. And I'm as guilty as charged. It is I'm actively putting habits into place, but I need to do that. I force myself to drink a glass of water in the morning or
Mhm.
two. I force myself to do that in the evening because I don't naturally do it. I don't naturally look at those impulses.
Mhm.
And it is a bizarre thing. I know their importance, yet every day I have to force myself to actually do a review of what's going on. And meanwhile, I've got a good rhythm established at work because literally my anesthetic technicians every 2 hours or so they say, "Hey, do you want to go to the toilet?" Oh yeah, I actually do. Thank you. And it's that kind of us reinforcing each other to take breaks.
Mhm.
Those kind of little things where we work as teams and we don't have to be there all the time. No, you actually take turns and be safe, but also look after yourself, and therefore that makes you safer.
Mhm.
Um, the kind of I mean that often enough goes with our eating habits. Many of us live the kind of Bridget Jones diary diet. In the morning, nothing. At the lunchtime, we have got 2 salad leaves, and in the evening, a 5 kilogram tub of ice cream. Yay! Healthy nutrition. Uh, the balance in eating, not. Um, so it's those kind of things, but we dress it up. Oh no, I do intermittent fasting.
Mhm.
Yeah, right, my ass. As if the 10
Yeah.
o'clock 10 o'clock at night pig out at the fridge is part of your intermittent fasting schedule. So
Guilty.
so
That's me.
exactly, and that's me too, and that's right now, that's the battle I'm fighting, and, I have dealt with the alcoholism, and, I'm okay in my sort of mental health, but there's still, I'm still an overeater because there's still things that I have not addressed. There's still things I'm struggling with. There's still me, the way coping with the stress that
Mhm.
often I put upon myself. So how bizarre is that? But then again, at nighttime, oh, and you feed yourself, and oh yeah, and you get to kind of ah, finally you can switch off. And
Mhm.
it's that. It's exactly why I used alcohol. It's exactly why I used other behaviors that release of pressure, release of
Mhm.
tension, and that is what I continuously need to work on. So my journey will never be finished. Okay, there is not a happy ending there, where I ride into the sunset and the film closes. No, that is no. My beautiful fight, will continue until I'm dead.
I resonate with what you said so much because I too struggle with my own, dimension of addiction. And I see it's a personality trait. It's truly genetic in the sense that it's not that I'm like hungry for substance. I'm hungry for the stimulation, the experience, the romance of it, the sensations in my body, and being able to have the power to manipulate it. Like it's like magical. And then, we learn methods to do this in a healthy way, but it's the curiosity is the source. And it's like, how far can I stretch my mind? How far can I stretch my body? What kind of weird ways can I bend my mind to see perspectives that I've never considered? And that was the addiction for me. And, like you said, we find ways to channel those aspects of our personality. Like for me, it's this podcast. I loved using my drugs of choice and having conversations with strangers in bars. Like I transformed that to speaking to experts like you who have so much wisdom to share, and that's my drug now. Like instead of drinking to that, at least I can remember it now because I'm sober.
Touche, touche. I feel exactly the same. And there is no longer the guilt and shame there. I think that really ate me up, those evil twins. Oh,
Mm,
no, 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 no. That is, um, and also the PTSD and much of the way my body was responding to it. As an example, when I was driving with my kids to anywhere, it would very frequently happen that I would go like that. So as if someone had punched me in the gut. And my kids said, "No, what were you thinking about?" Because they soon figured it out. It was a flashback to some time in my life where I was not so proud of the things that I've done. And it was bizarre how often I had such flashbacks, often to very minuscule, tiny things that were, with hindsight, maybe the way I looked at someone or a few words that I said to someone. Um, but there was pain attached to me, and I refelt, I revisited that pain again and again and again, and it was awful. And that nowadays, God, if that happens now once a week or once a month, that's probably okay. In the past, this would have been multiple times during the day. To
mm,
just see myself having healed so much that I do no longer have these kind of emotional hard times that revisit me every single day. Well, that's beautiful. But that is because I've done the work in other areas, and that's beautiful. That's maybe where I also try to deal with the lowest level, with the fundamental, with the foundations of the pyramid, where I make sure that I'm actually looking after myself. Because I know if I don't, then it becomes very easy for me to imagine a glass of wine. And there's a mnemonic that I use called HALT: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Now, tired in my job, that's very easy. So that's already one. If I'm hungry, if there has been a lot of stress, angry, and if I'm lonely, and lonely can mean for me, lonely with regards to emotions, literally, in that sense. It could also be that I have not lived my life to the fullest, that maybe I did not do the hobbies that I normally enjoy, that I did not activate my parasympathetic nervous system with whatever techniques I choose, those kind of things. Then if I put three of these things together, then my mind starts wandering towards not so nice solutions. If I put all four together, then, I can see the condensation running down on the outside of this beautiful amber liquid that will give me release of my tension, guaranteed. Okay. So that's what is happening.
mhm,
So I have to force myself every day to live a better life. But the cool thing is we have got the privilege of choice. We
mhm,
choose every moment what we do. Now sometimes you don't have the choice. Okay, if you're living in a war zone and the bombs are falling down on you, there is only so much you can do. Okay, right now you better do fight and flight, or you jump out of the way of this car that just is about to bowl you over. That's fight and flight. These are appropriate times. But there are other times when you can switch that off. And that's your choice.
mm.
Do you want to do that, or do you want to keep going watching telly until 2 o'clock in the morning, and or answering emails until 2 o'clock in the morning, or whatever it is? Um, this is your choice. You're not a victim.
Mm,
We sometimes love our pity parties far too much, and we have not yet learned to move out of that role that we play so well, the role of the victim. And we justify everything that we do with being that victim. My message to you is whatever happened in the past, that is what happened. The past is the past. It has happened. You can't do anything about it. You can learn lessons from it. You can use the past to guide you in the right direction. You can use the past as fuel for the fire now to create a new person. And that is beautiful. These are all valuable uses of the past. But you living in the past, either in those beautiful times when you were still 21 and when you were dancing away and it was so beautiful, and you can't let go of that, and you are now 55 or 56, just that birthday, great. Yeah, okay. Hang on. So you were a really good dancer, and right now you are just lying there, maybe drunk, listening to music and remembering that you were 21. Hang on, you idiot. Why don't you go dancing?
Mhm.
If you so much want to dance, get your ass out of bed. Stop drinking. Go to the kitchen. Tell your wife, hey, look, fancy a dance. You can
Mhm.
dance right now in the kitchen. Okay, and you can make a new memory. You can make you can lay new memories on top of the old ones. And who knows? Maybe that new memory is actually nicer than the older one. Or it complements the older one. How nice is that? Why not make it a mission?
Mhm.
If you were in the past, like me, I did martial arts left, right, and center. Why not get back into it? Now, fair enough. I mean, you don't really want to be thrown around in your 50s, 60s on a dojo in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or in whatever. Probably your joints are telling you you've got to be joking. But there are other ways of martial arts. You can do stick fighting at home. You can work out on a gym bag, things like that. So there's nothing to say that you can't do a different version of what infused you when you were in your 20s. Do that now. If in the 20s you did a lot of fighting, mixed martial arts, who says you can't now actually develop a passion for maybe classic karate and learn the various kata and the various uh, performances that you do? It is a beautiful way to go. You're still within the martial arts, but you're now doing a different aspect of it. So age does not mean that your life changes.
Mhm.
Yes, you will not no longer dance the rock and roll the way you did. Okay, I've got beautiful pictures of me doing proper rock and roll with girls being up in the air and great. I was 18, 19, 20 then. Uh, yeah, nowadays probably no, I can't do that. Let's be real. But what is the new me now? Do I really want to be that 21-year-old idiot? No. I want to be someone who now lives his life to the fullest.
Mhm.
And as much as there are seasons in your life and maybe times that are changing, who that was the past. So who are you now? More importantly, who do you want to be?
Mhm.
Who do you want to be when you grow up? And it doesn't matter if you're 27 or 70, who do you want to be? Who's the next you that you would really love to be?
Mhm.
It's your choice.
I love what you said. And the biggest thing is when we answer that question, when we answer who we want to be, that's when we start automatically making strides towards becoming that vision. And that's a part of the privilege of free will, where we can say, I want that. And we can bring it towards ourselves. Like a lot of people see it as the law of attraction, but it's not like something that you can put up. There's a certain amount of crystals around you, and this vibration will attract things that you want in your life. It's more like Plato said it best. The things that we find aesthetically pleasing are the things that we want or need in our lives, the things that we crave. And I agree in that. The things that we seek pleasure in, there's a deeper message that reveals our true desires. And if we could question that and flirt with it and discover it and play with it, we could really find the things that make us happy and find a healthy way to express and enjoy it.
Uh, and you don't know what that is.
Mhm.
And that is the cool thing. So be open. And that openness can be amazing. I had one of my, in the first 50 guests, I had a soldier on my show who was kind of tough guy on the tip of the spear, so to speak, literally, until he ran into a machine gun the wrong way around and he was firing. And he was suddenly no longer that type A personality, that type A winner, the type A kind of the man. But he was broken and he didn't know what to do. So he isolated himself, and for a few years he lived a very miserable life. Well, a very isolated life with a lot of pain and a lot of mental problems. He then finally listened to some other vets that came around and said, "Hey, look, want to come along? Today we play golf." And he played golf. Didn't do a thing for him. And then they said one day, you know what, today we learn how to do stand-up comedy. He said, okay, come along. Guess what he is now? He's a comedian. It completely got him. It was completely his thing. And he had no idea about that. Absolutely no idea. But he just gave it a shot. There was an opportunity. He just took it. So the lesson there is 80% of success is just showing up,
Mhm.
taking an opportunity and seeing where that leads you.
Mm.
If you think, hey, they are doing these kind of sound bowls where they lie there and experience different frequencies, what could go wrong? You're
Yeah.
lying there for 40 minutes. Is that no one will transplant your brain or something like that? So give it a shot. If it works, cool. If it doesn't work, so what? You've had a nice snooze. So try something new, and you will be amazed what will
Mm.
happen.
That's magical.
Mm,
When did you start realizing that you were developing an addiction in the past?
mhm. 95% of alcoholics will look you in the eye and will say, there's nothing wrong with me. Okay.
Mhm.
That is, I haven't got a problem. So therefore, denial is part and parcel of being an addict. Let's be quite clear about that. Um, I guess you get inklings, and those inklings, we as doctors um, can judge or can quantify and qualify when we ask the right questions. For example, have you ever thought that you should cut down on your alcohol? Have you ever felt angry when other people were talking about your drinking? Have you felt guilty about drinking too much? And then the last question that we ask is, do you sometimes need an eye opener the next morning because you want to actually calm down the jitters or just feel a bit better with your hangover? So these are called the cage questions. Angry, guilty, cutting down, angry, guilty, eye opener. And we use them because a good alcoholic will have 4 out of them. That's it. That's who we are. But we know, but we deny it. We are hiding, and it's the hiding that is unnormal. Okay. So therefore, when did I first know? I probably knew very early on, deep down inside. Question is, when was I ready to make a change? And
Mhm.
that there was a 20-year delay probably in there. So yes, and it is what it is. That is what the disease of addiction is. We are, after all, serving our body just in very destructive ways, but we are taking the pain away for at least that fraction of a second. We're giving us the good feeling that make us forget the trauma of the past or the trauma of present. That's why we escape our reality with whatever it is that we are doing.
Mhm.
And therefore it all makes sense in a very weird way to your body. And therefore it's if the body says, hey, hang on, I feel, at least for a moment, I feel good, why the hell would you stop that? You're doing something very profound. You're helping the pain of your soul. So what tomorrow? Forget about the consequences. Right now, that is far more important.
Mhm.
We need to look after each other. There's no two ways around it. But I guess you never start doing that until you have gone through a certain amount of trauma and a certain amount of damage to your life. And I always compare it with you pulling a bow backwards. You've got the arrow loaded, you're pulling the bow, and it's all the pain and all the trauma and everything else, the insides that are building up, building up, building up. Hopefully, you're now not just shooting anywhere because you're so confused and so full of pain, and actually the arrow hurts people, but you are actually now finally getting your moral compass right. You're actually figuring out who do you want to be. And you've got all that trauma that is pulling back the string. And it's just a matter of you visualizing, okay, where is my target? Who do you want to be when you grow up? Then you can let go. And now suddenly this arrow flies and you will be amazed. Um, it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful journey.
Mm.
But you need to go through that trauma. You need to have those experiences because otherwise there is no incentive for you to find the new you because
Mhm.
life is okay. It's miserable. Yes, I'm abused at home. Yeah, that's okay. I'm still living. That's fine. Yes, I get beaten up every day. But somehow there is still a bit of hope in me that maybe one day with his apologies last longer than 24 hours, you know? And there is still this kind of, I hang in there until the pain becomes so clear that you are so sick and tired of being sick and tired that you actually have to take action. And that's when the miracles happen, when you
Yeah,
take action.
I agree. I can relate to that as well. When enough gets enough, it's the biggest blessing when that final straw hits. I mean, it's like a chaotic disaster, but it does set us free, gives us the key to our own prison. Do you think nutrition ties into our addictions and mental health? Like my personal story is I suffered with alcoholism and using other substances after college to cope with a lot of my trauma. And then I lost my mom in 2020. And I realized that I was feeling ill and I needed change. And my current coping mechanisms were destroying me and they weren't healing me. And I didn't even feel good anymore doing it. But what really helped me stop craving the substances that I was dependent on was when I started addressing my nutrition. When I started taking different blends of superfoods and taking my doing my blood work and seeing where I'm low, specifically, not guessing.
Mm.
And I'll tell you that my clarity completely changed. I went from having mood swings to like thoughts and memories coming back that I wouldn't be able to process. It'd be like, what are these visions and voices? And I had that moment of like mania where I thought a higher being was speaking to me, but really it was just my PTSD trying to keep me living in the same cycle. And but when I changed my nutrition, the veil was lifted, and I was like, "Wow, I've been living in this sort of Dungeons& and Dragons kind of world that I created, and now I have a lot of work to do back here on reality." So, in your perspective, how does nutrition tie into our mental health and how we can recover from our addictions?
Hugely, hugely. Um, we As I said earlier, we live in a world of malnutrition. Okay, we are for multiple reasons, and the odd salad will not do it. Okay, the reality is we are crap. We have lost many skills that were normal to our forebears. How to grow nutritious food, how to slaughter animals, how to basically live a life where we pay respect to the animal and to those things that are around us that nourish us. It is for us, the supermarket delivers everything. You're completely removed from everything out there for many people at least. Therefore, we have lost the insights. We have lost the variations. We have lost so much of what we need. My story is like yours. I got out of my addiction, and the first 3 years were beautiful, and I was healing. And then 2 3 years after rehab, I was just sick and tired. Not sick. I was no longer sick. I was tired. I thought, is that it now?
Mm.
And I always had sent patients to a certain nutritionist here in New Zealand, Ben Warren, and he always impressed me as a great man. So I one day actually went to him and said, "Look, here's my money. Take me apart. I mean, really, take me apart." and let's talk. Is that really the end of me now? Is that kind of vegetative state, so to speak? Is that me? And we did all kind of blood works. We did all kind of specialized immunology testing, so allergy testing, etc. And my goodness, I didn't like to hear what was coming back because I was allergic to a beautiful German breakfast. German breakfast is typically a mountain of lovely bread. We've got lovely breads in Germany, sort of little rolls, all yummy. And then you put butter on it, and then maybe cheese and some meat products, and that sort of some eggs with it. I was allergic to all that. Okay, I could prove that. I had the allergy testing in front of me. And I thought, oh, fuck. So everything I loved, everything that made me feel good from an emotional eating point of view, I was allergic to. So, bloody hell. So, first thing he sent me bottles and bottles and bottles of nutraceuticals. And he has got some fantastic products that he created himself. So I knew about all that. And he said, here, there you go, man. You need that. And so much of that and that and that and that. And it was a good handful, sort of a good handful of things in the morning. But I soon realized that actually my body was missing that. That is how I had abused my body.
Mhm.
And it was what it needed.
Mhm.
So I started doing that and I started changing my diet. I cut out those things that were triggering me and making me unhealthy.
Mhm.
And that was pretty much what I said: the gluten, the dairy, eggs, those kind of things, and a few certain other foods that I just enjoyed. But okay, I made the point, cut it all out, and started nutraceuticals. And guess what? The next day I felt the same, and the next day I felt the same. And I thought, yeah, right. 2 months later, niggling pains that I had from old injuries, gone.
Yeah.
Smelly feet, gone. Hay fever, virtually non-existent.
Mm.
My whole body had changed, and I realized that I had been in such an inflammatory state. It was no longer funny,
Mhm.
and now all that inflammation was being switched off, and that was amazing. My life completely changed. There was a clarity now in my head that was as if someone had switched on the lights.
Mm.
So the attention to nutrition made all the difference in my daily life, and I kept persevering there. And I think much of my sharpness, much of the way my brain works nowadays is thanks to me paying attention to the nutrition and paying attention to a more holistic approach to life.
Mhm.
So that is beautiful. So in the past, I loved cooking. So I would have made you a lovely pasta dish with a nice cream and wine sauce,
Mm.
mushrooms, maybe some shrimps in there. Beautiful. No vegetable was hurt in the making of that dish. Okay. And nowadays, I've just 2 weeks ago, I made a huge amount of chili con carne, and I managed to get 10 different vegetables hidden in that chili con
Yep.
carne, and it tasted like, yeah, yes. Few carbs there, and the carbs were healthy carbs that were coming from roasted vegetables, some carrots, some kumara, some stuff that is healthy, lots of fiber in there, and then there was some meat in there, but it didn't play the main role. It was sort of here and there, and the rest was veggies, and it
Mm.
tasted like a dream. My family loved it. So stuff like that, complete different cooking compared with in the past. So therefore, I cut out those things that were potentially harming me.
Mhm.
I added in those things, especially the micronutrients that my body craved and needed.
Mhm.
And with that, suddenly, my body was no longer in the fight and flight mode. Oh my God, our shelves are empty. You need to eat, you need to eat, you need to eat. Suddenly, I was actually giving my body what it needed. And therefore, some of the anxiety dropped down.
Mhm. Yeah. And in my personal theory, and like there's bits of like case studies to that give me this conclusion is that some of addiction could be we're self-medicating anxieties of our bodies wanting us to satisfy fundamental needs. For example, if
Absolutely.
we're thank you. I've debated with so many people about this concept. Personally, I figured this out is similar to your patient that had to use the bathroom, and he was going through all his head, "What do I need? What do I need?" I feel like people are, like, maybe lacking maybe zinc, vitamin D, and they need
Mm,
to go outside, and they think,
mm.
"Oh, I need a cigarette." We're like, maybe you don't need a cigarette,
Yeah.
maybe you need some sunlight, like, and some people are like, "Oh, I'm anxious, I need to
Mm,
self-medicate." They don't think,
yeah.
like, your body's telling you that you need something that you
Mm,
probably have to consume, and a lot of that piles up because when we choose a substance instead, we become more malnourished. It's
absolutely.
yeah, and then it kinda domino
Yeah.
effect from there.
What we haven't touched upon is the fact that you have got about 1.5 kilos of nerve tissue in your head called the brain. You've got actually 1.5 kilos of nerve tissue in your gut. And that nerve tissue works together with about, I don't know, how many billion of bacteria that are living inside of your gut. It's called the gut microbiome.
Mhm,
And we have only in the last 5, 10 years began to realize how powerful that interaction of a healthy gut flora and um, the nervous system within your abdomen, how they play together. And it is an amazing, amazing insight. And that's where we learn so much more on an ongoing basis. And this is stuff that, as a doctor, I never learned. And it's only
mhm,
stuff, as I said, 5, 10 years ago, it started coming onto the surface. But nowadays we know that if we look after our gut and actually deal with the allergies, therefore that kind of sort of leaky gut, as we describe it as a model in our heads, that is calming down. So we're actually stopping the kind of onslaught of stuff that should stay in the gut that's now leaking inside the system and is causing mayhem. We're
mhm,
stopping that. We're giving your body what it needs to heal. We are actually working on techniques to calm down our sympathetic nervous system. You've got the fight and flight that most of us are running in. Now, that is not conducive to healing.
mhm,
When you have to fight, then your body says, no, 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 no. It's just forget the healing for a moment. Let's do damage, or let's deal with the damage that immediately right now happens. So basically stop him bleeding to death, those kind of things.
mm,
It doesn't say, wow, okay, those cells over there, they really need better blood supply to heal. Or actually those cells over there, they need to be dead. We need to kill them and get rid of them, eat them up, because they're cancer cells. Okay, we
mhm.
see that. But right now we're still fighting that bloody saber-toothed tiger. And meanwhile, the cancer cells are saying, hey, no one is watching. Let's get on with it, guys. And so here you are. So there is so much to our lifestyle that essentially destroys us. And we choose that lifestyle. Okay, we know that about 48% of cancers in the world are at least uh, supported by our lifestyles, if not completely caused by our lifestyles.
Mm,
Now, that's a hell of a lot of cancer that is due to obesity, alcohol, nicotine, and the other poisons that we choose to consume to deal with our pain and our hurt. Hang on, guys. That's this is we're committing suicide in installments, and
yeah,
it's bizarre.
yeah,
And it's only something that we begin to realize now. So, a holistic lifestyle where actually you stop and you actually cultivate ways of switching off the sympathetic nervous system and it's supporting the parasympathetic nervous
yeah.
system. May that be that you sit for 15 minutes in a sauna, or that you maybe go to a jacuzzi, a spa pool, that if you have no money, go out there and hug a tree. That's on purpose ironic, because there's one of my first guests. She was a hardcore businesswoman. Completely, her body was rotten, and she could barely move in pain. And she went to this retreat, and the yoga guy said, "Okay, come on, girl. There is this tree. I want you to put your hands on the tree and just stand there for 20 minutes, because you can't do anything. You can barely walk out of the car." And she said, "What shall I do with this tree? I'm not a tree hugger." 20 minutes later, half an hour later, actually, um, the the yogi came back and sort of said, "Yeah, okay, you're finished. That's your session for today." And she was about to get really angry with him, turned around, stomped to the car, and realized when she was walking to the car, hang on, I'm actually walking to the car. I'm not shoveling. I'm not barely moving. I actually feel good. And she f that was and she was such a brainy person. For her, she was a money investor. She was doing all those kind of things. And suddenly her reconnecting with a very different side of life and of nature suddenly gave her power back. And nowadays she runs a retreat and is doing these kind of things. But would you believe it? You know, from multi-million dollar business deals and broken body to now healthy body and a life that she fully, truly enjoys. Wow. That is the reality. So whatever that means for you, if you're not a tree hugger in a good sense, then that's cool. Find something else.
Mm,
How is it to be out there in nature and maybe do a competitive sport such as, I don't know, shooting or maybe archery or whatever it is? Be out there and actually enjoy yourself. How beautiful is that? And that suddenly you focus on your breathing, you focus on things, and all this tension falls away, and you feel really good. Why is that? Because you've switched on the parasympathetic nervous system, and now your body allows itself to heal. It also comes up with solutions to problems.
mhm,
When you're in a chaos, the fight and flight, you're often completely like that. You can't see straight, or you can only see straight, but you don't see other solutions or methodologies that help you to approach a problem.
mhm,
I get the best ideas when I'm standing under the shower and you just relax and suddenly, bing, your brain comes up with something, a solution to a problem where you thought,
mhm.
ah, okay, beautiful.
I love those
So,
moments.
what does it take for you guys out there? How can you switch off the fight and flight? And how can you make a difference? Maybe combine those things. We said holistic nutrition. Okay.
Mhm,
So maybe, just maybe, cook yourself something really nice and something healthy. And now switch off your handheld device and actually just sit there and enjoy it.
mhm,
Actually, have a bite and chew it. Do you feel the crunchiness? Do you feel the fresh salad or whatever you've put in there? Do you feel the sweetness developing as you're crunching the cells there and sweetness comes over your tongue? And now you've swallowed it and you sort of all these tastes came together and you made that. So that's an achievement. And you're looking after yourself. That's an achievement. And now you're eating healthy. That's an achievement. There are three things you did where you have made a decision to live a better life by simply cooking yourself some nice food and now eating it intentionally. How cool is that? Eh? You're a winner.
mhm,
You've just changed your life. And can you imagine the compound interest if you were to do then maybe a bit later another decision that might again guide you in the right way? Maybe have a glass of water,
mhm,
or maybe park the car not immediately at a supermarket, but maybe at the very end of the car park, 200 meters away. So you are now walking 200 meters extra. That is more exercise than you had done yesterday. You know, and just keep going. It's beautiful. That's the life that I live at the moment. There are setbacks, no two ways around it. There are days when I don't feel like it. Hell yes. Um, but all in all, I've made the conscious decision that I want to live more intentionally. I want
mm.
to live a life that is worthwhile living. And I want to have a smile on my face and say, well done, Stefan. You really didn't want to do that, but you did. And for
Yeah,
that, I'm proud of. And that's cool.
that's very cool. So, what was the moment that inspired you to write My Steps to Sobriety?
Actually, I had spoken. I've given lectures in the hospital, and I've been more and more outspoken about my own recovery and about addiction. When my wife said, "Why don't you write a book about it?" And I thought, "No way! away. It was still that bit of shame, and not guilt, not shame, not guilt, the kind of embarrassment. I didn't want to put myself forward. And I thought, maybe. And I started writing, and I couldn't stop. So for half a year, it just poured out. And the first version of My Steps to Sobriety was pretty harsh. It was pretty far more honest and far more my story. And it was obviously a lot of healing involved there, because I actually wrote things down that maybe I had not ever written down. And I then gave it to read to some people, and one person I really, truly love and appreciated, the boss of the rehabilitation hospital in which I was, he sort of read it and said, "Hey, look, man, all the addicts go through shit times. They have got their own shit. You don't need to be so specific in the shit. Why don't you aim or focus more on the life that you're living now and how you got there, the lessons you learned, etc., rather than be so specific." And that was actually quite nice. So now I had done the healing by actually journaling, so to speak, writing down things. And then I started modifying things. And I did, and I was happy with the product, put it out there. Then, yeah. And there's so many things, because I didn't market, wasn't the greatest seller. So whilst I became an Amazon bestseller in Australia, it was still didn't reach the audience that I wanted. So I got in touch with a different publisher. She started working with me, and it was a nightmare, because the book that it is got destroyed, and she wanted. It was an awful journey with lots of new trauma there, and it just, oh God. But I grew, and the book grew. So ultimately, My Steps to Sobriety now is again reflecting my journey, and is reflecting the lessons I learned the hard way. And there are so many lessons I put therefore into that book. So My Steps to Sobriety is basically a little bit of my story. Far more important, though, it is the story. It is breaking down the 12 steps into a logical framework. Something, forget the God, forget the kind of more esoteric things, but look at it like you having a friend, and you both are in the same business. Let's say you both have a restaurant, and your friend is really struggling, can barely make ends meet, and your restaurant is buzzing. So he would come to you and say, "Look, man, can you help me? I mean, look at you. Your restaurant is full. Mine, there's some tumbleweeds rolling through. I don't know what to do." So you would say, "Look, come on, man. Of course I'll help you." So you would go across. What would you do? You would probably sit down, have a look around, order a few things off the menu, observe the staff, taste the menu, try not to vomit. Then maybe go behind the scenes, check out how the food is kept and what is happening. Do a really good inventory of what's going on. Then you probably want to have a good discussion and maybe put a few changes in place. Throw those things off the menu that no one buys. Maybe redo the menu towards more a niche that is maybe better suitable for you. Then you put some quality assurance in there, make sure that things actually work behind the scenes. You might then make amends. So to those people who were previously coming to you, you might send out flyers to or an email list, say, "Hey, look, guys, we've lost a bit of our way, but under same management, new ideas. Why don't you come back, and as a thank you for being loyal, you get 30% off your bill and free drinks the first night," or something like that. So you're making amends, and then finally things are going and smooth. You make quality assurance program to actually make sure that you keep going the right track, and you review every month, etc. And then finally your friend is as busy as you are, but meanwhile he is so intrigued about the whole thing. He loved his own journey, that he is now starting to give back, and that he is actually saying, "You know what, I create a Facebook group for struggling restaurateurs, or I have a meeting on a Monday night when our thing is closed for other restaurant owners to come along, have a whinge, have a talk, connect. That would be a very logical thing that would happen in daily life, and something that you probably have done in your life before. Well, what I've just described is a 12-step system.
Mm.
That's exactly it, what you have done. And so therefore, if you now demystify the 12 steps into a very logical approach to help a failing business, well, if this failing business is you, then use the same steps.
Mhm.
But it all comes down to that you realize enough is enough, you need help. You realize that you can't do it alone. And you realize that there's help out there. That's steps 1, 2, 3. You then need to do a very brutal inventory and actually look really what is the problem and do something about it. That's
Mm.
4, 5, 6, 7. And then making amends, that's 8 and 9. And then quality assurance, and finally giving back, that's 10, 11, 12. So beautiful. So that's exactly what sobriety is all about. That's what recovery is all about, and that's what I've sort of put in there, and with action plans, etc. But then life doesn't stop. Life continues. That sobriety is only the start, but your problems remain there.
Mm.
You will find shitty people around you. There will be toxic relationships. There will be depression. There will be all kind of financial hardship. There will be COVID, whatever. There will be new challenges, but they're all predictable. Many of them at least are.
Yeah.
So why not put a bit of knowledge in there? So the rest of the book is then all about action plans and about explaining what is depression. And okay, how do you recognize it? What can you do? How do you go about it?
Mm.
Or what do you do with a toxic employee, etc. So learn about the challenges just as much as you learn to change a tire of a car, because you know sooner or later it will deflate and in a place which is not so nice. So you learn how to change a tire. Well, maybe learn how to change an employee. Maybe learn those kind of things. So that's what my book is all about. And that's what my show is all about. Because ultimately, I bring on people that have been out there and have made the mistakes, that have gone through shit, and are now having developed into people who are further down the path than you are. So by now listening to them, you don't have to learn the lessons the hard way. You can see what others have done, what worked for them, and maybe it works for you.
Mm.
So that will speed you much further up down the path. I've got many guests on my show that have very unique skills, skills that can be incredibly valuable for you, depending upon where you are, who you are, etc. So I often call them Survival Tuesday, where we focus on one thing. Let it be financial uh, financial knowledge, or emotional intelligence, or something quite specific like how do you become sexually good in bed. So I had recently had a porn star on my show who gave us a men's health perspective on his sexuality. How do you perform 25 years in an industry where many men are struggling in their own bedroom? Things like that. So actually address those things that no one talks about,
Mm.
the taboos. Also talk about the traumas. I had many sorry, I do many guests who have been on the receiving end of nasty abuse, sometimes of human trafficking, sometimes of childhood sexual abuse that you believe would be unbelievable, but it has been their life. And by actually talking about that, we hopefully can help others to talk about their traumas, the traumas that they have kept hidden. So that is what I do nowadays. I'll talk about the hard things in life, but with a good amount of humor, sometimes gallows humor. Hey guys, it is what it is. But I am honored. I'm, I've got a privilege to talk to people who are just amazing, and that's where I think we need to be. We need to be open. We need to be open to change. open to trying new things, open to listening to stories that maybe we don't like so much because they're maybe a bit too close to home. But just because they're too close to home, they make you think, they make you feel, they make you take action. And hopefully we can guide you into taking action into the right direction. So instead of you being a victim, maybe you become a survivor. And then maybe out of a survivor, you become a thriver
Mm.
because you're maybe coming on the same journey as we are, where we are now being open and honest out there and are talking and trying to make this world a better place, one interview at a time.
Absolutely. I love it. I love what you're doing, and I'm gonna look into your that discussions. That sounds I love the topics that you brought awareness to, and I like the taboo topics too because it's all about like I love this day and age because it's about being authentic and like finding comfort and power in that. And do you provide one-on-one coaching?
Negative. No. I'm burning out with that. I
Okay.
did that when I was a pain physician. I
Mhm.
did. I was getting far too involved, and that became its own trauma. So
Mhm.
no, it is. A lot of people have asked me that, but no, I'm not a life coach. I'm I'm a man who is continuously trying to improve himself, and with that, I can lead by example. I can do living amends, so to speak, and you can learn from my lessons. But there are many life coaches that I bring on. I would say about 50%, 60% of the people who are on my show are actually coaches and can help you there. So, but I see myself as as maybe the candle in the darkness, or maybe the torch, maybe even the lighthouse. I don't. The more we can spread light and the more we can open up, the more we can maybe influence others and let them grow. And that's what I do. I bring my we talked about my steps to sobriety as my book and as my show and podcast. I'm also writing other books. I've just finished a book with 16 female co-authors, which is called Depression Lied to Me, where you basically tell 16 stories of depression to actually show that, hang on guys, depression is such a chaotic and strange um, beast. It's a chameleon, comes in all kind of shape, form and sizes. So sometimes you don't know that your pain is actually depression. And so therefore by us doing that and by us speaking out about it, maybe we can make a difference. So I'm always working on new projects, because ultimately there is so much that we can help, that we can change. So I love my life. Would I go back and change anything in the past? That's often a question I'm asked. No, no. All the trauma came with purpose. It made me who I am now. I was such an idiot, but that was then. The past does not equal the future, and I am determined to create the best future that I can. But without the pain that I've gone through, I would not know where the direction is that I need to go. So no, it is it's a good life, and I'm determined to make it the best life I can.
Thank you. So, Stefan, we have some rapid fire for you. What is a funny story your family tells about you that you'd like to share?
You catch me out there, because most of the funny stories, so to speak, are either probably not so funny, or they are funny, but they are probably not appropriate to be aired on wide out there. I have done many things that I'm not proud of that were quite funny. So I was the soul of the party, so to speak. With hindsight, probably not. It's since this could be heard by children, no. In this case, I nothing comes to my mind that is funny enough to be said here.
I can respect that. What is your biggest pet peeve
Right now,
in general?
extremism.
Mm,
Extremism. I can't stand how our world is being run by people who are extreme far right, far left, far God knows where. It's always the same crap.
Mm.
And it drives me nuts what is happening with China, with Russia, Ukraine, with America, with the president that you just had, with so many things. It's nuts. The history is repeating itself as if people, we are too stupid. We're too
Mhm,
stupid. Our attention span is what, 5 seconds? The teaching of history in our schools is no longer happening.
mhm.
We're dumbing down a generation, and therefore this generation will make mistakes that are so blatantly obvious. And
Yeah,
that is the harshest thing.
that's
So
where
no,
that's where our
that's my
job
pet peeve.
that's where our job is very important, and I respect you again for being proactive and being an educator during these times where, I realized making similar observations to what you just said, that I can't just sit back and, like, dislike it. I have to have some kinda role in it, and you know what they say, "If you can't beat them, you join them." Well, like,
Uh,
if everyone's staring at social media, let me put some fruitful content so people could grow. If this is
Exactly, exactly, and that's why I had two concentration camp survivors from the Second World War on my show. I have got people who went to various wars or lived in various hard times where we can talk about the history. I had someone who was involved in a very nasty incident in Ireland with the in Belfast with regards to the Irish Civil War. So those kind of things. Let's talk about them.
Yeah.
Let's talk about why we try to alter history. For
Mhm.
example, let's one of the things that I want to do is I want to talk to someone from the Armenian community, because here we are. Armenia had a genocide in 1915 and in fact 1890s, brutal genocide, and Turkey, who was the perpetrator, is now saying it's illegal to say that we ever did anything wrong to the Armenians. So, and the same with many other countries who are rewriting history. That
But
makes me sick. So, therefore, we have got the duty of teaching our children that hang
mhm,
on, soon you will no longer find that. So, therefore, let me tell you the truth. Let me tell you the honest truth. What happened in 1915?
mhm,
And you could say, but we're 2022. Who cares what happened in 1915? I tell you what, it is right now, it's happening again.
yep,
And we don't see it for what it is because
mhm,
we get brainwashed with kind of crappy news. We get flooded with certain messages that are written by people who want to influence you.
mhm,
So therefore, no, 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 no. Go out there and be honest and ask, not just, is it true what someone is telling me, but also ask, why is he telling me that?
yes. Thank you, that's very good food for thought. And our grand question, what is the most important lesson you've learned over your career?
That I am a dick, that I can make mistakes, and I'm very good in that. I can make a lot of mistakes, but I also that I can learn from them, and that it is in fact my duty to make mistakes,
Mhm,
and that making mistake is very good because it forces me to reevaluate, to learn, to grow. If everything goes smooth, well, that's boring. Okay, so sometimes you win, sometimes you learn, and that is a beautiful attitude to cultivate and to celebrate mistakes you make and learn from them.
thank you so much, Dr. Neff. I loved speaking to you, it came very natural to me, and I appreciate your transparency and your strength in telling your story.
It was an absolute honor to be on your show. And for all of you out there, guess what? Guess what? You're coming onto my show. Ha ha! We turn the table.
I would love
I
that.
get I get to grill you, and it's gonna be fun.
I can't wait, I would love to do that.
Absolutely. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. This was a longer show than we had initially planned. It is what it is. So, thank you so much. It was an honor for me to be on your show.